everybody, welcome to MUSE TV. We are here today. We're talking about a film called Eye Challenger. We have director Paul Boyd and we got James Duval, the star of the film. Let's start with Paul. This is your film. What was it about the story? What was it about making this film?
Well, we're in LA. We're big stoners and we wanted to make a stoner comedy. It's an undersubscribed market, and so it was initially started that way, but I also have for a long time been wanting to make a contained thriller. And after seeing Buried with Ryan Reynolds, to be honest, going, wow, my God, they made that movie 90 minutes in a box. They didn't leave the box at all. So I wanted to do something like that. And I've written a bunch of scripts, someone trapped in the trunk of a car. I was really obsessing on trying to tell that story. And then my co-writer was just reading about these kids in Russia that were doing this, that were burying themselves for luck. And we thought, that's it. Because it allows us to make it an internet challenge. It allows us to get the scary moment when he goes into the box. And then obviously the subtext of what it all represents, with him crossing into the underworld to confront his past, to explain why he is who he is.
Yeah. And James, what was it about that you wanted to take the film? Because it's a great story.
It really is. Well, I was taken by the character pretty quickly off the bat. I felt like he was a really, really great guy in a really, really horrible, shitty situation. And sometimes when you meet people in those situations that, you don't have the greatest impression of them. And it was this kind of this chance to show really how great I thought the character really was, how much heart he had and has. I mean, he's still with us.
Yeah, exactly. And I gotta
I'd like to think.
Yeah. And I have to ask you, James, like, these couple scenes, if you're claustrophobic, it would have been a hard time to shoot. How was it to be in those tight quarters to be able to try not only to act, but if you have I don't know if you're claustrophobic or not, but to be put in a box and have to portray the role?
Well, actually someone asked a question about this in the last interview, and I kind of skipped over this part. To be honest, it was about how did I prepare for getting in the box, and it wasn't that I prepared for getting in the box or did it in a claustrophobic sense, because I just dealt with that. It was better for me not to think about it and just film it and then just take it as it comes. But the one thing that I did that I feel helped me out tremendously was I rehearsed everything on my back. Because I don't know if about other people, but for me to say lines when you're lying down on your back is a lot different than sitting up or standing or walking around. And I felt it was a bit of a challenge at first. So once I became very, very comfortable with doing it, all the dialogue, lying down on my back, being emotional on my back, playing all these sorts of different highs and lows on my back. Once I got in the box, it really was kind of just focus and settling into, now I'd been rehearsing so much, now was performance time.
Yeah.
And so kind of letting that go. There was a few times, I think Paul recalls, where I got a bit claustrophobic and screamed out a little bit like, you gotta open the lid, I'm freaking out here.
Yeah, we were on a stage for that part of it. So the one side of the box is open, but a couple of times we had all four walls on the box when he was in there with the GoPros, and yeah, it was touch and go. It was like, open the door. But I completely understand. I couldn't have gone in that box. No way. But it's great because by the time he's in the box, you care about him in the film. It starts off with who is this guy?
Yeah,
likable dude, but then you slowly the onion peels and you begin to see him through other people's eyes. You begin to like him. So by the time you're in the box, you're invested.
yeah.
And then then you get to share the experience with him. And because it's comedy, it kind of switches between both. So I think with Buried, it was tough. Like my brother wouldn't even go see the film because I don't want to see a film with someone else. So to me, it allowed us to temper that, to say, okay, we can have some in the box and some. It made it, I think, a little more digestible. Because as you said, most people see it, they go, "Oh God, super claustrophobic." So.
Yeah, well, it's not like Buried in that sense where the whole thing's in underground. So that's a good, I think, a positive selling point and easier selling point for us as well. As I know, most of my friends, the reaction, all the reactions have been positive across the board. But I've had a few people just like the moment they see the stuff in the box, like, nope, that's not for me.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I went through the process of filming it and going through, I don't think about you don't think about that sort of thing, until later.
Yeah, but the way Paul shot it and the way Paul directed it, it really does, because it's very much a
Yeah.
retrospective part. It's kind of like things that were like he had said, it haunted him coming back and him
Yeah.
that retrospective time being
That's why hearing that actually is a big compliment.
Yeah, because you think you know him. You think, oh well, he's just a stoner and he's lazy and he's a loser, and this is why he's gonna. He even says it himself. I'm a loser. Why am I called challenger? Because I never win. It's all about a change of perspective, because this is a character that people love, but he just doesn't see it. He's so caught up in his own low self-esteem that he needs to be told by complete strangers. I mean, someone that he plays with online, the kid he plays with online even says, I don't want a friend in real life. I mean, that's kind of where we're at, right? We're all interacting on computers and devices and the human connection. And so I wanted this film to be about human connection and about someone finding love and pivoting from dark to light.
Yeah.
And like a ordinary person in extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah. And Paul, you have a great cast, including James. You got Tina Majorino from such films like Veronica Mars and Napoleon Dynamite. You got Margaret Cho. You got the amazing MC Light. How did you put all this cast together?
I did it. It was the once we got Jimmy, and he was in. It made it easier because other actors know him. But we actually we wrote the part and we're like, yeah, wouldn't it be great for Margaret Cho to play this? And then the same with with Logan's mom. We got our first picks.
Yeah.
So it was it was kind of written for them. And then and we never imagined when we went to Margaret that she'd say yes, because stand-up comedians, not in many films. But she'd worked with Jimmy 20 years ago. So that made that easier. And then with Tina, it was like that, Jimmy, right? It was just she said yes. Oh, okay. People are saying yes. And this was before the pandemic. And, a tiny little micro budget movie, but that's encouragement, right? For other filmmakers to go out there and fucking write your script, because you never know who's going to say yes.
Yeah.
They're not going to say yes if you don't write it. You know what I mean? So it was that. But obviously having James with his track record made a difference. Made it easier for other actors to come on board, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And James, I remember you from Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
Easily when I was a kid watching that movie. And it's like, dude, you really bring to life the character, especially with what's going on. I mean, it's perfect timing, especially the way you brought the character to life with people who are gamers, who are just sitting behind a screen and talking to each other, especially with the way Instagram is nowadays. Research wise, like, what did you do to research for those to really involve the character, and especially in this gaming community, in the gaming world, and the way it is now?
Well, I've been a gamer in the past. I mean, and I'm not in the, I think at least the last quite a few years now. I haven't gamed probably since 2016 or 17, but I used to game on and off quite a bit. So I'm very, very, familiar with that world since the 90s, since the 80s. Really, I remember going to play Pong and putting in a quarter, the very first stand-up video game, and then Asteroids and Donkey Kong and Pac-Man, all the way through to home video systems. So, I grew up with it. And the same thing growing up in, Los Angeles and Southern California, marijuana was a big part of the culture. It's still a big part of the culture here. So I was very familiar with both parts of that, or aspects of the story. What really attracted me to it was the heart. And so it wasn't so much that the prep. I think most of the prep was technical stuff, learning the dialogue, getting comfortable with, because they're very long scenes, like some scenes are 6 or 7 pages before we cut. There's even, I think, a 8, 9 or 10 page scene. There are a couple of those. So it was really just becoming comfortable with that and the content of those scenes. So then once you're comfortable with that, the same thing is sort of lying down and learning the dialogue. Once you become comfortable with material, then shifting yourself to a different environment, especially if the environment is a set, lends itself to all of these things. And so you can kind of let yourself go. And as long as you're honest with your work and you play the material honestly, I think it sort of blossoms, and sort of organic things start to happen that are natural. You don't have to force it.
It was interesting. It was interesting when he's playing the video game in the film, because we had a green screen on the computer, and we didn't even have someone doing Logan's phone calls. I think maybe the co-writer shouted out the lines.
Hmm.
This guy, it was amazing, because you want to give the actors the tools. You want to see the video game. You want to be able to be on the phone with the person. So but no, he didn't need that.
I mean, yeah, and I'm playing on a keyboard, of course, but I can tell you, there's a few times when I got blisters on my fingers.
But you know what I mean, though.
So I was like, I got a blister. I can't play for 2-3 days now.
But also too, like scenes like that for me who does this, it's like you see, they're implementing it in post, the screen and everything, and how you have to act it and how you have to pull it in, especially when you have nobody around you and it's just you, and you really have to you have to make it look real and really sell the scene. And that's something that a lot of people don't really realize or recognize, that something like that does take a lot of work.
We talked about the game and what the game would be like. So then it was a question of just, when you're filming it, you just visualize it. You visualize this tank going down the street, running down with the bazooka and blowing bodies up. And
yeah, that was important. That was important for us to create the grossest sound you could ever hear but not see. I remember I saw this movie about these kids trapped on a ski lift. I think it was called Frozen. I can't remember what it's called. And one of the people jumped from the thing, and they get attacked by wolves. But you don't see it, you just hear it, and it's the most grotesque thing. That was different because it wasn't funny, and it really grossed me out. And I thought, man, I have to do that in a film because that's using the medium, right, of sound. You know what I mean? And kind of pushing people to feel things. So that was deliberate, and we had a lot of fun putting the sound design together for the game, splatter.
Yeah, and Paul, that's something I want to touch on, because you have done some amazing music videos over the years. I've seen so many, from Lenny Kravitz to Sting. You've done some great videos, and you've used sound. I mean, you're using music to tell the story of what the sound is. How much of that experience, because like you just mentioned, trying to find the sounds in order to put into your film, how much of that experience over the years have you really developed and to put into your movies?
Oh, if you imagine every one of those 200 and something videos is a page in a sketchbook, right? So, and then when you come to do a bigger composition, you can refer to everything you've done in the past. But I don't go back to videos, I'm going to do it like that, or I'm going to do it like this, because I'm a shooter too. I shoot most of my own stuff. I didn't with the film. I had a friend do it. So I go in with a real, a kind of design aspect already figured out for this film. Like, as I said before, we did 2 books of storyboards and didn't use them on the set at all. It's like Werner Herzog, storyboards are for cowards. We just kind of, we rock and rolled it on set because I already knew exactly what I wanted to do. So then I wanted to trust my instinct. And I think that comes from experience, whereas someone who's maybe has less experience would stick to the board and go, it's got to be. Whereas I know once it's inherent and it's in me that I have to react on the day. Rather than have a preconceived idea of how it has to be.
Well, what's great about that too is you're like, this is better than the board. I didn't imagine this, and you can go with those, and that again, it remains and continues to be natural and organic, because you're not forcing anything. You show up and you thought of it one way and it just happens to naturally fit another way. You go with that. It's like going with the flow of the river.
And we covered it in Masters. We didn't do a lot of A-B dialogue coverage. We kind of set the canvas and let him move through the frame. That was all deliberate too. And I knew for the first act of the film that it would slow it down, but that was okay, because I wanted this film to be, I wanted you to kind of understand him first, and get to understand him before you go on the journey. This unbelievable journey of craziness. You had to, in a way, connect with Sid first and like him, feel sorry for him. And that was a challenge, because he's not really a likable character, selling drugs to kids, you know what I mean? But you peel back the surface and you go, he's a fucking great guy underneath all that. That was, the prime target for his. And also, he never smiles the whole film, right, to the end. And, that Devil Wears Prada, that came from there, 100%. I'm like, that performance in that film had such an impact on me that I said, I want to do that.
It helped me tremendously. That small piece of direction made such a huge difference in my performance.
But how funny, right? A thing in Devil Wears Prada comes into this tiny little indie store. You know what I mean?
But that's inspiration, and and inspiration, you can find it anywhere and everywhere. So it's kind of like I challenge you. Being open to these things is how you see them. You know, at first when we meet Sid, he's not open to opportunities, so he doesn't see when, you know, Tina's character is trying to go out on a date with him, even though he's lonely and wants to be loved, because he just doesn't see it. He's thinks that it's not possible for him. And the moment that he begins to see things, opportunities open up wide for him. You know, the doors, they blow wide open.
And it comes from youth. It comes from a young person, right? Who's completely different than you, a young black kid, but you're the same. You play games online, you're the same. You're the same person, even though you're completely different. And even he says, I don't need a friend in real life. Logan, it's like, what do you mean? You know, because, you know, the way that we communicate, there's a lot going on in the subtext of this film.
Yeah.
With
Basically, yeah, it's a great way of saying I need you and you need me, but without using those words.
Right.
Exactly. And last question, what can you tell the Muse audience to get them to watch the film, and when does it come out, and where could they find it?
Coming out on January 11th. Watch this film to have fun and let go. There's so much drama and stress going on in the news in the world right now. Here's a film where you can just dive in, let go, and have fun and go on a mad adventure and not take it too seriously. And I believe that the subtext of the film will give you stuff to talk about long after the screening.
Very cool.
Yeah, you want a wacky screwball comedy thriller? Come join us. Ours is the way to go. It's definitely, and we tell you this too, it's original. You haven't seen anything quite like this.
James, Paul, thank you so much for being a part of Muse TV. Really appreciate it. And if you want to watch the film, we're going to put links below so that you can watch it. And for everybody on the Muse TV network, don't forget to find it wherever you could get your video downloads. They'll have it, and we'll put in musetv.net where you can find the film. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate
Thanks, Michael.
Cheers, everybody. Thank you, Michael.